Today I'll be making a video for Extrude Bevel, the general concepts of it and the use of it if you have to make use of it in any 3D application basically. I'll be using 3D Studio Max for this demonstration, but the same concept kind of like go rounds in other 3D application. Alright, so I'll be using this on a shape and text object part. I'll also make use of this as a profile. Quickly now, my name is Tolu. I do media, tech, video design, 3D art, also your handy guy, and everything in between. This is my channel. I'll be doing a lot of videos in and around the same topics, so join in anytime. Subscribe if you haven't, please. And okay, so let's dive right in. All right, so like I said, I'm going to be using 3D Studio Max for this demonstration, and I'm going to run you through all the basically use the interface quickly. I have a starter interface here, and any 3D application you open by default might give you a perspective view like this, and what you see basically is your top front left and so on. I've created a basic object and so that you see what we are saying. So for other applications, you might get a quad view, which is the top front left, which you could also change views, but basically some orthogonal view and a 3D view. So running around any 3D application, how do you get around? You want to be able to orbit, you want to be able to pan, and you want to be able to zoom. So middle mouse button allows me to pan. Most 3D applications allow you to do the same. And if you roll that same middle button on your mouse, which is the scroll, Studio Max allows me to orbit, and those three items are actually right here. It's the orbit, the pan, and the zoom. Okay, so the next thing you want to be able to do is the move, rotate, and scale. So that's a move. All right. Finally, every object you have in 3D is going to have a sub-level. So if I create a box here, I'm going to enable edged faces just so that you see this a little bit more clearly. All right, so if I increase the segments here, right, so the sub-level, to access it in 3D Max, I'm just going to convert this to an editable poly, and you have sub-object, vertex, edge, border, polygon, and element. So the vertex allows you to select each point, control point here, and you have the edges, and you have polygon, which is each of this face, and elements, which allows you to select the whole of the object if you have a polygonal object basically. All right, so now that we've done that and we've gone around the basic navigation of the application, I also have a starter file here for our extrude and bevel tutorial. So what I've done here is I have some basic items objects in here. So this is a line, and this could have been created inside of Illustrator, for example, and I would import it into 3D Studio Max as a DWG or DXF file. So, and this is pretty much very easy if you want to extrude a logo or any basic or any other type of basic shape. So you could also draw lines within 3D Studio Max. If you come here, you click on the line, but this is not that tutorial anyway. So I'm going to extrude this object or star I have here, and I'm going to do this by applying. Now, extrude is when you talk about extrude or bevel, you are thinking basically 3D depth. So it's only logical I would want to apply an extrude or bevel to a 2D object and basically convert it into 3D by getting depth out of it. So I'm going to apply an extrude modifier to it, and by default it might come as 0, which is flat like this, and all I have to do is increase the amount of extrude I want on the object. So right now we have this, and basically this works for any shape you want to apply this to. And yeah, let's move on to texts. And I could also select my text, and I'd like to apply a modifier to it also. I would apply the extrude modifier to it. Extrude. And basically just used the same amount I used for my previous object. And this is what we have if you wanted a 3D text. This is for even if you don't know how to use any of these applications, all you have to do is go in, extrude, perhaps render out a PNG file, and these are specific things you could just Google out and get on YouTube or any other web page, and it will take you straight to the specific details as to how do you extrude or how do you render out an image. So I could render out this image called nice looking 3D object or 3D text to my file. So this is applying an extrude to text, and this basically would work for. And the lovely thing about this process is I could come back into the text will I say layer in the stack, and I could basically just still I have there, and same thing goes for the shape, as long as you can get into the sub object level. In this case, for the shape, I did not convert it into an editable spline. This is going to be called the spline of 3D Studio Max. I could actually introduce this into the stock, and I could still manipulate this, and it will still be extruded once I get up there. All right, so that's for text. Now I could also extrude polygonal faces. So to make this easy, I'm going to reduce the amount of segments I have there. I'm going to also convert this into an editable poly, and I'm going to reach for the poly sub-object. Select each face like this. Yep. Oh, dude. Mistakenly deselected everything. So all right, so what I'm going to do here is extrude. So in my quad menu, just by right clicking here, I have extrude, and you can actually add a modifier Can you? I never came to that anyway. Anyway, so for polygons, you have this. Once you selected, you've converted it into an editable poly. You could reach for this within the modifier menu, and this is extrude right here. You could use this by just clicking on it, and it brings out this menu for you. Simply just now, so we have this nice looking whatever you want to call it object here now, and finally many other things you could actually use the extrude for. So I'm going to select. I still have something selected. Did I lock you? Did I lock you? Okay. So editable poly. I don't know what went wrong there. So the poly here, I'm going to extrude. Instead of using the menu, I'm just going to right click and use the extrude in the quad menu, and yeah, extrude, and just going to bring this down a little bit. Or let's just undo, extrude this to this level a little bit more. Click on this face. Okay, now I need extrude, extrude, and I'm going to come to the top. I want this to align with this face here, so I'm going to extrude this one more time, and I'm looking at my top view. Yeah, I got that. And I'm going to delete this face, and I'm going to extrude, and I'm going to use this view, bring this down to that level, and extrude one more. Okay, you could actually weld that, and but for this, I'm just going to leave it as it is. And extrude really just creates a hollow, pathway in between, everything that you drag out. So just in case you need to know that. And so I just created this using the extrude. Now extrude you're going to use pretty much well while you're going to do a lot of your modeling and other things, but these are kind of like basic uses and for starters, and those are kind of like the few things you could start with and use this item or this modifier for. All right, going forward, I'm going to touch on the bevel, and you will find out that the bevel has a little bit of would I say, a better effect or better to what you would get from an extrude modifier. So I'm going to add a bevel modifier to this. Where are thou? Starts with this flat plane, and I'm going to add, so with bevel, you have a couple of heights, and you would understand what those heights um, mean as we, walk around the options. So I'm going to, for my, basically, I'm going to leave my starter plane. I'm going to go straight to level 2, enable, and I'm going to also enable level 3. I'm going to give a height of, let's say 5, and I'm going to leave the outline. So for level 1, I'm also going to give a height of, say, and I'm going to say -1 for the outline. Not minus, let me just say 1, which is a positive. And have a height followed by no outline here. And for 3, I'm going to also have 1, and I'm going to do a minus for this. And this is what you get with the bevel modifier, which in my opinion, depending on what you're trying to achieve anyway, the bevel gives slightly, if not better, result as to having the really sharp edge that you would get with the extrude modify. So I'm going to now explaining what levels. See at the bottom is level 1, this is level 2, and finally this is level 3. So I did a plus here and a minus just so that it closes back inwards. And if I do a plus here, you would realize the difference. So this comes, out, and what was going on there. Just by applying this, I should be able to understand that with a negative value, we'd get the opposite effect. So I'm going to apply the same effect for the text layer I have here. Bevel, gotcha. And of course it just applied the last values I used with the previous item. Straight into this, I think this is pretty, and I've not done much work here. I could simply just add any color I want to this, and you could just, for example, Google how do you render in 3D Studio Max, and you have this page come right up, and just save this as an image, and I have this to use in graphics or wherever it is I want to use it. As usual, you could also go down the stack and manipulate any of these items, and those effects will travel up the stack. In this case, I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to also apply or better still, I'm going to come back to the same item I used. I'm going to go back to the polygon sub level, each of the faces. Going to select all of them round. Turn you the other way. And to select multiple faces, all I'm doing is holding the control button on the keyboard. Okay, so I'm going to right click as I should, and I'm going to select bevel. Now the difference is once you pull out for the first level for the bevel, and you release your mouse, you get to adjust this further as you drag your mouse. and you get this effect that you have right now. And of course you can actually do this. It mustn't be like individual phases like that. I could just extrude like this, and I have this, and I'm going to also adjust this slightly downwards. And there's kind of like a whole number of things you could actually do with these modifiers. Okay, so going further, I could also make use of this. Right click, editable polygon, and select you, extrude, take this down, extrude, double click. No, I don't want that. Bevel that. So I'm gonna extrude one more time, extrude this way, and extrude right here. I know I'm not matching it up with what I have. You get the picture. I'm going to extrude, and finally I'm going to nope, escape, undo. I want to bevel you down here. You could align it however way you want, but like I said, you get the picture. And this is what it looks. All right, so that's for extrude modifier and bevel, which you could use on shapes and lines, and this is you using it on faces. So the final two things, which does not necessarily have anything to do with the extrude and bevel, which is also useful within 3D Studio Max while you're creating your objects and models. I'm going to touch on the sweep and the lathe modifiers. So right here I've drawn a line, a spline, if you may, and I'm just going to isolate this so that we can see just this in all our views. So I've drawn half of a pawn, and well, that's why I'm trying to create a pawn. So I've drawn half of it with a line. So by applying the lathe modifier to this, L lathe. So what we get is this beautiful looking verse, but that's not what we are trying to create. So I'm going to get in here and move the axis just a little bit, but this is also kind of like opens you to other ideas of things you could create with the same modifier. Anyway, so I'm going to push the axis outwards, and I have this. I mean, without going far, you already see what we have. So I'm going to, just so that you see this, I'm going to turn this by flipping the normals. You could Google what that means in other tutorials. And, we already have just adjust all this by coming into this sub-object level and adjust where this line ends, bring it a little bit forward. And I could see by clicking on this icon which says show end results toggle, I'm going to toggle that in, and going to bring that vertex in all the way, and we have our pawn. And you could also adjust this or modify your lines however way you please. Okay, so that's for this guy, and I'm going to leave the isolation mode, and I'm going to use a sweep modifier, and this is pretty much very much useful for things like those into architectural models and like that. So before I continue, I'm just going to hide this so it doesn't get in the way. So think of a wall. Let's assume you have a wall all the way through, like a rectangle in this manner, and I want to have, sort of like edgy design you have. I don't know what it's called in that field. So I want to have this design basically go around the wall. So to do this, I need two items, which is the where I want it, or the path where I want it to travel through, and one item basically to show or describe the path. So I'm going to apply this sweep modifier to the rectangle. That'll be the S sweep, and by default the modifier has a couple of shapes that you could use, however way you want to use it. But in this demonstration, I'm going to use a custom selection and use this shape that I have drawn here. So by selecting, nope, custom pick. So I'm gonna pick this. By selecting this, you would have noticed that we have, a design come on our rectangle already, and it's using this as a profile, right? And the way it is it's picked it and it's used this when I say the opposite direction, kind of like inside out. But what I want to do is just to, you could use this if you want it like this, but what I want to do is I'm just going to find a way to flip this. Let's see. It says mirror on Z. Oh, I think that fixes it already. All right, so if we had a wall, and we could just have this at the edge, top edge of the wall, and we have, a really nice, did I select it? No, I didn't select it. We have a really nice design to use there. And you could also use this for a picture frame or whatever it is you choose to want to use this for. So that's the bevel, the extrude, the lathe, and the sweep modifiers in use. And you could actually transfer this knowledge and make use of them in a lot of ways. Of course, the sweep and the lathe could work in different, well, I won't say work in different ways in other 3D applications, but they probably would come with different names. It won't be lathe and sweep as you have it right here in 3D Studio Max. So, but you could also just have the idea that for some items you need one thing for the path, defining what you want it to form, and the other item basically carrying the design or the profile of what you want the design to look like. I think there's one more item. Let's play around one last thing. And I'm going to say let me rotate this first. I'm going to apply some bevel profile. Improved. Okay, so I guess this, yeah, so I'm going to undo. Going to delete this. No, I need the line. And let's bevel profile. Okay, I think my system is doing a little bit of misbehavior. Need to restart very soon. Oh, anyway.